Hi, I'm Claire Popkin.
Hi, I'm Kim Miles.
I'm Julia Liu, and you're listening to the Cinematography Podcast.
The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography Podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Ilya Friedman.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Ilya.
It is time for another episode of the Cinematography Podcast, sometimes known as Cinepod. Hey, tell our listeners who you are and what do you do?
I'm Ben Rock, and I'm a director sometimes. And I also edit. You can check me out at benrock.com. I just added a bunch of stuff to my corporate reel. Give it a look-see.
You must have a little time if you're updating reels.
Well, as it turns out, Ilya, there was a hurricane situation here in Los Angeles.
I didn't hear anything about this.
Were you here for the hurricane?
Yes, I was here.
Okay, so I was unaware of the earthquake, even though I was literally just sitting in my house when it happened. I didn't even notice it, so it must not have been that big of a deal.
You're a true Angelino now if you don't notice earthquakes.
You know, the first time I ever experienced an earthquake here, I was filming somebody and I was holding the camera with my hand and I couldn't keep the camera still. And I was like, am I having a tremor? Am I having a seizure? No. There's an earthquake. But I was like, why is this image moving when I don't want it to? Oh, it's because the whole room was moving.
Yes.
But during the hurricane, basically we were just stuck in the house, waiting for certain doom to hit us. And,
it didn't come.
It was mostly just very rainy.
Yeah, it was rainy. I think that other places got it worse, but I actually spoke to someone in Cabo today and they said that they were fine too.
Ensenada got messed up. And San Diego had serious flooding.
Well, it was a much stronger storm. But hey, the people who are listening to us did not download this episode to hear us talk about the weather.
All right,
well, they did hear us.
Yeah. Talk about yourself, Ilya. What do you do? Who are you? What do you do for a living? I feel like I'm a road comic. Hey, who are you? What do you do for a living?
My name's Ilya Friedman. I have a company called Hot Rod Cameras where we are in person right now.
We're currently sitting in your screening room, in your awesome screening room at Hot Rod Cameras.
Not more than 3 feet from each other. So we can record this podcast. We sell camera equipment to professionals and aspiring professionals in the motion picture, television, and creator economies. It's sort of like a new media sort of world. We've built 6 studios now, several of them for creators, MTV people. It's kind of cool.
Nice.
And we have some great people on the show today. We've got not 1, not 2, but 3 DPs who all work together to shoot the new Michael J. Fox documentary called Still. And we've got Kim Miles, Claire Popkin, and Julia Liu on the show.
Nice.
And we're going to get into that interview in just a few minutes. But we usually start every show talking about something topical, something that's related to show business.
Yeah.
And
we call that close focus.
We do.
And now, close focus.
What is our close focus today?
Well, it's been, there's been some ups and downs about the strike and, rumors of settlements and whatever, but nothing concrete has arrived yet. But one news item kind of did pop up, and I feel like it kind of highlights a bigger trend in Hollywood to me, which is Bradley Cooper's new movie that he also directed and stars in. Maestro, which is about composer Leonard Bernstein. And Bradley Cooper, who is not Jewish, got prosthetic makeup, a very awesome looking prosthetic makeup to make him look more like Leonard Bernstein, who was Jewish. Mm-hmm. And I remember I opened up Twitter and one day, one of the trending topics was Jew face.
What?
Jew face. And I was like, what's going on? It was people, hair on fire, that Bradley Cooper, who
wore a prosthetic nose.
Yeah, it's not just the nose, too. He has like a whole
forehead.
He has a whole prosthetic thing going on his face to make him look more like somebody. And I have to say this, full disclosure, I was raised Jewish. Ethnically, I would consider myself Jewish. But honestly, it didn't look like a Nazi propaganda video, or film. They would have been films back then.
Yeah.
It looked like...
It would have been content. Sorry.
Nazi. I loved all of Leni Riefenstahl's content that she made.
She was the queen of content.
Her content was spot on for the Nazis. Olympiad, what great content. Anyway,
I'm so glad that we could devolve from Jew face into Nazism.
I think that it's the obvious. But anyway, I have to say, there's definitely a push for greater authenticity in our movies.
Yes.
So,
but won't AI bring that to us?
For sure. But like having a Caucasian play a Latino character, for instance, as Al Pacino did in Carlito's Way, as Charlton Heston did in Touch of Evil. Not something that would fly today. And people sometimes, when they're getting hyperbolic and fragile about this stuff, will say, well, can a non-Jew play a Jew? And I'm like, yes. I don't really see why they couldn't. And if they're saying that this makeup effect is anti-Semitic, it's the hero, the romantic hero of the movie. If you watch the trailer, it's about the relationship with his significant other. And
the whole movie's not mocking Leonard Bernstein.
No, the movie is about how complicated and interesting he is. That's my guess. And it was shot by Matty Lee Batik.
Oh, so, he's good.
So he's
friend of the show. Yeah,
one of the best, and I love talking to Matty.
I would love to talk to Matty about this.
Yeah, and which makes total sense because he also shot A Star Is Born. Also, so I thought it was very interesting today, and it was reported in Variety that the Anti-Defamation League.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they came out and said that the makeup is not anti-Semitic. Well, so we all get absolution, and we can finally watch this movie without propagating Holocaust lies or something. I don't know exactly what.
Thank you, ADL, for weighing in to make sure that.
So I mean, to me, the hot button issues that this brings up. One is that everyone on social media is like sitting there in the morning, going like, "What am I going to be pissed off about all day today?" And this just happened to go across the transom and decided to be the main character of Twitter for the day. And in case you're wondering, the rule is don't be the main character of Twitter ever.
Or X.
And the other X, I refuse. And the other thing is that we do have to have, I think, a serious or semi-serious talk about representation. And, there's a push to be like, if you're going to have a gay character, you should have a gay actor play the character. And I agree, especially if you're playing someone who presents as gay, because if you're having a straight person pretend to be gay, then
it could turn into pantomime real quick.
Yeah, it turns into a minstrel show of some kind. But, the question then is like, well, could you have someone who's not Irish play an Irish person with an accent? And in my humble opinion, maybe someone will argue with me, I would say no problem, as long as their accent's good. I don't feel like we have a problem with underrepresentation of Irish or Australian or British people,
So, I mean, I feel like this question of representation has been floating around in the industry for a long time now, for a very, very long time. But it seems to me hot buttony. It only seems to really happen, like, I don't remember anyone getting up in arms about, I could be wrong, maybe my memory is faulty, but Brokeback Mountain? I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, there were some people who were a little upset about Brokeback Mountain.
There wasn't enough openly gay actors playing.
Well, I do think that at that time, and it's funny because it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
It really doesn't.
But it was like, what, 17 years ago?
Probably.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it was still uncommon enough for gay actors to be out in Hollywood. And I feel like today you wouldn't have the same problem.
I agree. You probably wouldn't have the same problem today.
But again, going back to the Bradley Cooper thing, I think nobody would complain, Leonard Bernstein least of all, about Bradley Cooper playing him. And in fact, supposedly the makeup design had been shown to all of his family and they had all approved it.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
End of story. There will be no further controversy about this.
It won't be a Twitter blow up meltdown.
So here's to you, Bradley, and your prosthetic Leonard Bernstein makeup.
Hey, before we get to the interview, then we have to give away a book.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Junk Film.
Yes, by Catherine Coldiron. We had her on the show a few weeks ago.
All right, so pick a number between 1 and 100.
I'm going to go with 43.
43. Okay. Congratulations, Scotty DOP, who posted on Instagram.
Yay, Scotty DOP.
Scotty DOP, Alana will probably be reaching out to you shortly to get your address so that we can send you your fancy new book. Congratulations.
Congratulations. It's a really great book. I hope you love it as much as I did.
Excellent. So let's get to our interview with the DPs behind the new documentary, Still.
Woohoo.
The Cinematography Podcast interview.
I'm joined now by a trifecta of cinematographers. I can't think of a time that this has ever happened before in the history of the show. I've got the three people responsible for all of the cinematography on the new Apple original film Still, which is the Michael J. Fox movie. I watched it last night. It was great. Welcome to the program, Claire Popkin, Kim Miles, and Julia Liu.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for having us on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
All right, so I'm just going to dive right in, and whoever is most appropriate to take this question on, please feel free. How do you split up a movie, a documentary like this? How do you create a hierarchy? Did you guys work in different locations, different scenes, different days? Were you all working there together? How did it work with the three of you?
So actually, I think none of us met each other before now, after the movie's done. So we definitely worked separately. Claire and I had done the documentary portion, and Kim worked on the historical reenactments.
Nice. And there are a lot of reenactments, and there's a lot of interview, and there's a really wonderful through line that kind of interweaves all of that together between the first person and the reenactment. So when you guys were planning this out, a lot of those reenactments are period pieces. Was it a really conscious thought of how to make the period piece look completely different from the modern interviews with Michael J. Fox?
Yeah, I can take that. I guess I'd come on quite late. Julia and Claire had already done the interviews and all the factual stuff, let's say. Davis had already put the rough assembly together, knowing that he wanted to incorporate flashback narrative or scripted footage into the show, which is where I came in. So we had from the footage that Claire and Julia had shot, we had a very clear roadmap of what we needed and the slots that we needed to fill, the gaps we needed to fill in the show. And Davis had he's the king of planning, and he's also the king of shooting off the cuff on the day. So he was very well prepared with storyboards and slugs, and we knew exactly what we were after. And then on the day, he was gracious enough to kind of let us run with it and shoot it the way we thought, looked the best. So
that's great. And of course, by Davis, you're talking about the director, Davis Guggenheim.
That's right.
Claire, if you'd like to jump in, and then Julia, I'll go to you next. How did you guys come to the early stage of the project, the verite and the interviews? How did you, Claire, how did you come on board, and what was your thoughts early on?
Yeah, so Julia had started the project. I joined at a later period. I've worked with Davis quite a bit in the past. We did a series on Bill Gates together. We did a bunch of commercial work together. And I think there's some shoots that Julia wasn't available for and that were on, the West Coast. And so Davis asked me to step in for some of those and kind of, we had a good shorthand already with the way we work, and he kind of explained the style. And so I jumped in for a bunch of those to try and do Julia proud on it. But she had already sort of established the main section of shooting, I think the master interview.
And so, Julia, let's talk about that. When you come onto the project, you've got this giant sort of like almost a retrospective of a man's life in front of you. What were you thinking would be the best way to capture this visually? How did you think that this should come together? And how much of this documentary, I know all documentaries usually have some sort of guideline or script for, people are going to talk about what and things are going to come in here. But, in the early stages, it's usually very nebulous. How does your influence, how does your creative input come to be reflected on the screen?
I think it starts with a lot of conversations with the director. So Davis and I had never worked together before. So it was trying to get on the same visual vocabulary and try to achieve a shorthand, because you want to talk everything out before you get on set together. So a lot of times we would just early on, we go on shot deck together and just look at shots we liked. And actually he had some storyboards done of, there was scenes that we shot just with Michael by himself that were like verite, but not. And so those were like storyboarded pretty much. And so it was kind of nice. We could shoot them as if it was narrative, but we, used reference shots to talk about the mood and the lighting. And he had a really clear idea of like what scenes would, what kind of emotion he wanted them to evoke. So like this one's a little bit darker because this is like the downturn of the prognosis. And then this is a little bit brighter. And here we are with family. So that was really exciting for me because I come from a doc world where I do a lot of verite, like real verite. And so to be able to kind of dip my toe into the narrative sphere, even though it was a documentary, was great. And the thing that I thought was most interesting, kind of a challenge, was that he really wanted everything to feel like a lock-off. That was a very early directive. And not everything is. I mean, that would be really difficult. But I think we we did a good job with that because there is a stillness. I mean, it's referenced in the title, in all the cinematography that happens in present day. And I think it's because for, I think, two reasons. Parkinson's disease, there's a lot of involuntary movement and tremors. But also, I think because it would be intercut with his archival footage. And so much of Michael J. Fox's, I don't know, all the archival footage is so dynamic. He's almost like acrobatic in his way of moving, that we wanted a contrast so that it was much more observational when it comes to the present day footage.
Julia, I'm really glad that you brought up the archival footage, because it's sort of like the fourth person who's not part of this, the archival. Like, there is so much incredible archival footage that gets intercut throughout this entire project. And I was blown away at the volume and the quality. I mean, and it's going back, which has got to be probably 40 plus years now, certainly back to the 80s. And I'm curious, was all of that available to you at the beginning so that you had something to play against, so that you understood like what the juxtapositions were going to be between the archival and the contemporary? Or was that sort of a surprise to you too? You knew you had some stuff, but you didn't get to review it. How did the archival footage come into the whole visual tableau of this movie? Claire, you want to dive in here?
Yeah, sure. Actually, so when I joined the film a little bit later, there was some, rough assemblies of scenes where there was actual like archival. There were storyboards for the stuff that Kim would shoot later, and then there was real scenes. And Davis brought me in to sit with the editor, Michael Hart, a few times, and we just looked at some scenes as they played out and how they cut, and discussed what he liked, what he didn't like. And Davis Guggenheim is very prepared. He's always prepared. Like the last series we did together, he was, everything was just like, here's what I want this to be, and like, we'll let the real stuff play out. But there's an idea, he goes in with an idea and a plan. I mean, from the idea of shooting things in a very kind of locked off, way. So I saw a lot of the archival that had been in there. And obviously the film changed, as documentaries do, as you make it. But there's a lot of like ideas of how we could transition our scenes in and out of existing verite. So it might be a seamless cut even, whether there's like a camera movement or a wipe, or it's just tonally, how we're going to light the scene. So for me, at the point I joined, I had the luxury of seeing that, which made, maybe my job a little bit easier at that point, which then informed my approach to the scenes that I shot.
And for Kim, we're talking about the archival footage and how that informs the work that you did on the movie. Did you get to look at much of that archival or see cuts before you then had to dive into your reenactments? Or did the archival footage help create your look, or help you to create your look for the reenactments? How did the archival footage play a role for you?
It was tremendously helpful in determining how we approached the scripted stuff. Some of it, was recreating Back to the Future and Risky Business and that kind of thing. And other stuff that we shot was more to do with his childhood memories and stuff. And it had this more kind of nostalgic growing up in Burnaby sort of feel to it. So on one hand, yes, the archival footage played a very heavy role in determining how we did things. And on the other hand, we got to kind of freelance ourselves a little bit and be a little bit more idyllic with his memories, his growing up stuff particularly.
Usually we shy away from tech. This is not a tech-heavy podcast. We usually don't talk about what cameras and lenses you use. But because there was three of you, and it sounded like you worked in fairly disparate ways throughout the production, I'm a little curious, was there a continuity of technology? Because you have very different looks and things going on. Claire and Julia, did you guys coordinate? Were you using the same technology, and Kim were using something different? Or how did you guys handle the tech conversation between the three of you?
Yeah, well, I think because of the budget, we talked about shooting on a Sony Venice, but then we were like, oh, let's save the money for the glass. So we shot on the Sony FX9, and often single camera, only a few days we would have two cameras, and then we shot with Zeiss Supreme primes.
Yeah, and then for the scripted stuff, we had our own sort of thing going. We were on Alexa LF, and I think we had Movie Cam primes, which are a set of lenses
vintage.
that Movie Cam built back in the 80s, and then I'd never heard of them before using them on digital projects. Like I'd never used them on film cameras before because I'd never heard of them, but they were supplied by Arri Rental along with the cameras. So LF Alexa for us.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful how all of the different looks feel so harmonious through this whole process. Now, when you've got 3 cooks in the kitchen, tell me about your final grade. Tell me, did you guys get involved in post-production, or did each of you kind of like supervise your own sessions? Were you completely removed from the process? Was there a post-production supervisor who said, I'm handling this from here on out? How does the post go with the 3 of you into the project and making sure that what you're intending on the day is carried through to the end?
Yeah, I was there for finishing, but were you, Julia and Claire, were you guys involved in that on your end at all?
I wasn't involved in the grade.
Yeah, I was not involved in the grade either. I sent, I would have my DIT pull a few stills each day and I'd send them on, but that's about the extent of my involvement.
Same.
Okay, we had Stefan Sonnenfeld was our senior colorist on the show from Company 3.
Oh, he's good.
And yeah,
that's an understatement. He's very good. Yes, he's famous.
He's seen it done a couple of times,
yeah.
Right? And he and Davis had a tremendously fruitful and long relationship. So off we went to what amounts to a country club, really. The Company 3 facility in Santa Monica is somewhere you want to retire. It's just amazing. But Davis was there in attendance and Stefan was there. And, we did the same thing. We shot with LUTs and CDLs on set, and then all of that information was handed through to post.
I thought it was great. And I mean, Stefan's an awesome collaborator. We did Free Solo with him and I loved working with him on that. So he's faces.
Oh, Free Solo, that old thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
And of course, Davis, he's worked in a variety of genres over the years, both scripted and unscripted, documentary, perhaps best known for maybe An Inconvenient Truth. Can you guys talk a little bit about the collaboration of working with someone who, on a project which kind of straddles these lines of different styles? I mean, Julia, you were talking about how sometimes it was faux verite, and it sounds like you were getting to do like your verite sections maybe with a second take then. Can you tell me a little bit about the faux verite and did it feel like reality television? You tell me, what was this like?
It didn't feel like reality TV. It felt like narrative, in fact, because we had a stand-in, we had a full lighting team, and these were only the scenes. I have to say, like, only the scenes where he was by himself. And we also lit everything, like pre-lit everything, but that's like pretty normal in verite even. But there were some scenes like when his family was involved with his children that we weren't able to block out because that would, make everyone feel really stiff. If you're like, okay, this is your position here. And I mean, we sort of tried to, but it was like a mixture at that point. Davis is a really strong director and he has a very clear vision. And so a lot of it was just conversations ahead of time to figure out how to achieve what he had in his mind. And then there were some always happy accidents because it's always, that happens with docs. So
I would say it's an interesting approach. It's kind of like elevated documentary filmmaking in a way. Like generally, my approach working with him was we'd light a space and you let the scene play out as it will happen. Generally, he and I would figure out where we want to put the cameras ahead of time so we could be kind of out of the way and not influence the scene. So in a way, it's not reality. We're not scripting the verite portion, but we're approaching it with a plan as Davis does everything and lighting the space so it looks nice ahead of time, then letting things play out as it will. Yeah, it was a nice way to do it. Very thoughtful.
And I think, Claire, you had a lot of leeway with determining time of day and stuff for that. Like, I'm thinking particularly of the beat sequence at the end,
oh yeah,
really.
No, that last shot, last sequence, it was interesting. Yeah, we had this. We were shooting this place in Malibu. I'll just go off on a tangent here. And it was, we had this we've got a 15-minute window where we cannot light the scene basically. And so we had some HMI set up. Should we go after schedule? Because we probably would end up going after. But somehow Davis and everyone else kept us on schedule. We managed to just shoot this thing in the window that I've been the light will be in the perfect spot. I won't have to put anything up. And so we had them strike out, take the lights out while we were shooting the scene. It was kind of amazing. So yeah, great team to collaborate with.
That shot is my favorite of all the doc scenes. That is my favorite shot with him and his son that you did. I mean, that of all the doc stuff, so mine included.
Way too kind.
I agree. I think that's the shot of the movie for sure.
Michael J. Fox, to this day, one of the most charismatic people on this planet. Kim, I get the feeling that you probably didn't have him for most of the work or any of the work that you did. Claire and Julia, let me ask you, is Kim just completely unlucky? Did you guys have so much fun just being around that energy and, magnetism and charisma just, day in and day out for the whole project? I got to imagine that might have been one of the best perks is just to be around it. But I could have it all wrong. But coming through, I mean, look, the thing was nominated for 7 Emmy Awards. Congratulations to all of you, but tell me about the stuff that doesn't make the screen. Tell me about just the working environment day in and day out and shooting this thing.
I can share my favorite Michael J. Fox memory, which happened on the end of the first day. And I want to say also, like what you're saying, he's the most charismatic person, and it's really true. And I think he's such an icon that everybody on set, all the crew, were so excited to be there. And like, you know, a lot of times the job's just a job, but that was not the case here. Like from the like gaffer to key grip to every like down the line, everyone was a fan, you know, and it was a very special energy on set. And we had filmed this whole waking up sequence. He gets out of bed and then he does his morning routine, like brushes teeth and whatever. And we're in this small bathroom set for hours together, and we're all crammed in there, and we have all the lights and the gear, and it's hot. And he was such a trooper. And at the end of the day, you know, I went up to shake his hand and thank him. And he just like said very deadpan, like holding my hand, never forget, we shared a bathroom together. and I was like, I will never forget that. It's like this day is burned in my memory, you know, like I was looking through the eyepiece being like, I can't believe I'm filming Michael J. Fox. This is like, I can't wait to tell my parents, you know, because, yeah, my parents are like immigrants from Taiwan. They do not know a single celebrity person's name, but they know Michael J. Fox. And so this was like a really meaningful project to work on. So that's my favorite memory.
It doesn't surprise me at all. He's so fast. He's just, you know, so quick-witted. Claire, do you also have a treasured memory from this project?
I don't know if I have a treasured like individual memory. I just think he's just such a gracious, positive person. It's really infectious, and the entire vibe on the set from everyone was just super positive and happy the whole time, almost to a degree that I've never experienced before. And I think that came from Michael and from Davis. He was just like a real joy to work with and a consummate professional. I mean, it's not every day you're filming a documentary about someone who kind of understands the angles and like do things in the way that's best for the camera as well. That's a luxury we don't always get.
Rarely, I would guess.
Yeah, and you nailed it. We never met one another, Michael and I, and it was, you know, we were shooting in his hometown, and he wanted very much to be there. So although his mom came up and well, she lives in Burnaby, so she came over and we hung out with her and showed her around, and she had a great time hanging out with us on set, which was great because it wasn't long after that she passed away, which was not a great thing. But Michael insisted on us stopping. I think we had 20 days of shooting on the stuff that we were doing, and I remember one day Michael asked everyone to just like stop everything, and they set up a big screen and he zoomed in so that he could talk, you know, one-on-one with all the crew members and thank them personally, you know, for coming out to help tell his story and stuff. So, you know, it takes a real special human being to go out of his way to acknowledge, you know, the contributions that everyone's making to help tell his story.
Well, I think that definitely comes through in the documentary as well, too. That really, what an incredible person and what an incredible story. All right, well, I think that's actually a really good place for us to leave it. Clair Popkin, Julia Liu, Kim Miles, thank you so much for being on the show. It was really great to hear about your experience working on Still, and I hope it wins all the awards. Congratulations again on the nominations, and I hope that you guys can come back again and talk about whatever you guys are working on next.
That sounds good. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so that was the team behind the new documentary Still. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome film, by the way, just a great film.
And I can't wait to have you guys back, maybe individually, and we can chat about other work and other things. It'd be lots of fun.
And now, Short Ends.
So Ben, it is our famed short end time of the show where we talk about our obsession. Could be anything outside the spectrum of entertainment industry. It could be, you know, technology.
Have we ever done one that was like, hey, my short end is this one place where I got a hamburger?
That would be a pretty strong obsession, especially coming from you. But no, we've never gone that far. But yeah, maybe we'll start that. Maybe we'll start really branching out here. So if we have an obsession that is not a movie, media, television, podcast, something.
Yeah.
All right. So Ben, what is your fancy obsession this week?
So my very fancy obsession is, okay, so slight background. I was listening to the Dana Gould Hour podcast. It wasn't the last episode, but the one before. And he does this segment called True Tales from Weirdsville, where he kind of goes into the background. It's usually something for some weird piece of Hollywood history or entertainment history.
Is it near Needles, California?
Sorry. I don't know. Anyway, so he did one about Peter Sellers, and he made me aware of a movie that Peter Sellers did that I never even heard of. Mm-hmm. So for those of you younger than me, which is probably most of you.
Our demographics probably skew a bit younger than us now. Yeah,
that's fair.
So, yeah.
That's fair. Children, fetuses. Anyway, Peter Sellers was the original Pink Panther, and he's in Dr. Strangelove, and he was in the original version of Casino Royale.
Oh, yeah.
A super weird James Bond movie that I don't actually recommend at all. But
did you see The Party? Yeah.
The Peter Sellers movie? Yeah. No, I have not seen it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So Peter Sellers was like one of the biggest comedic actors of his day. And he made a pirate movie in 1974. He dies in like 1980, I want to say. It might have been 79. But he made a movie called Ghost in the Noonday Sun.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. And it was directed by Peter Medak, who mostly directed comedies, or he's still alive, but he directed the horror movie that freaked me the most out as a young kid. It was called The Changeling with George C. Scott. Mm-hmm. So he was the director of Ghost in the Noonday Sun.
Did that movie changeling you?
Oh, God.
Sorry.
You're in a mood tonight, man. And it's different when we're in the same room together.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is. It's very different.
The chemistry is different. So Ghost in the Noonday Sun, not a movie that I'd ever even heard of. And I stumbled across, like I was looking up something about Peter Medak because I'm a fan. Mm-hmm. And I saw that he made a movie called The Ghost of Peter Sellers.
Oh, wow.
And what it is in 2018, he went and retraced his steps in making Ghost in the Noonday Sun. He retraced his steps. He goes back to Europe. He goes back to England. He talks to the people who were around at the time. And the basic story of Ghost in the Noonday Sun was that Peter Sellers really wanted to make this movie with him. And as soon as he agreed to do it, Peter Sellers went insane.
Oh, wow.
And was a monster, awful garbage person to him from that moment forward.
Oh, geez.
Right down to shooting scenes without him, trying to get him fired, doing all this awful, awful stuff. And at that point, Peter Medak had made The Ruling Class. He'd made a couple of movies that were well regarded, but I think he had a new kid and he needed the job. He needed the money. And also, nothing could have been more exciting than working with Peter Sellers, who is, I don't even know who you could even compare Peter Sellers to today, maybe like Will Ferrell or something in terms of like respectable, huge physical, comedic person,
and range. Yeah.
At one time it would have been Jim Carrey, like Jim Carrey was definitely that kind of actor. And so it's not Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, because you're not really there at the time. You're there now, or is it 2018, as Peter Medak today is retracing his steps and talking to people and seeing the contracts and seeing like letters that were exchanged between Peter Sellers or executives who'd put money into the movie, trying to figure out if they could fire him or how people were conspiring against him, 50 years ago. And so he's a little bit emotionally disconnected from it, but you can tell that he's like haunted by what happened because he was a director on the rise and he kept going. He's had a career this whole time. He's never stopped working. But like this was going to be a humongous giant leap for him. And instead it ended up kind of like he was afraid that his career was going to be over because, if you get a chance to work with a big actor and then you shit the bed, you might be put in movie jail. You might never get out of movie jail. Anyway, it's fascinating. And by the way, like anything else, as soon as I hear about a movie like that, I'm like, I go look to see where I can stream it. And it was on Tubi for free. So you can watch it right now if you have Tubi. Tubi is a free
it's so great.
Service. So anyway, check it out. The Ghost of Peter Sellers. It's on Tubi, streaming for free. And if nothing else, it's just interesting to see sort of the process that Peter Medak went through, back in the day. And I think Peter Medak is like one of those kind of unsung hero directors. You don't really hear a lot about him, but he's done a whole lot of work with a whole lot of big people. And if nothing else, check out The Changeling. It's creepy as shit.
Mm. It'll changeling you.
Sorry. Stop it.
Sorry. It's so bad.
God, it's horrible. All right. So
you're a dad. You understand puns now.
Okay. Now I understand dad jokes now that I'm a dad because I realize that dad jokes are our revenge. Dad jokes are pure revenge. They're not intended to be funny. They're intended to kind of leave a mark, to kind of hurt. And it's like, this is what you get from waking me up at 6:30 in the morning for the last 5 years.
Interesting.
So Ilya, what is your short end?
It's sort of two things, but I don't think a lot of people realize, because most people got rid of it years ago, but I have hung on to my Netflix DVD subscription.
What?
I received...
Wait, they still do that?
They do for about 2 more weeks.
Oh, man.
It is the end of an era, maybe less. I want to say it's
now tell me that at a certain point they at least went to like a Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, they went to Blu-ray. You have options for Blu-rays, but really
Wait, so somebody else could take that idea and just start shipping out Blu-rays to people?
Absolutely, and I expect someone will do that. And
I think it should be you and me. I think that's our $10,000 idea right there.
You might be joking, but I am 100% serious. I actually really think that there is a business to be made, maybe not on the national DVD mail service sort of thing that Netflix did, but I think that a regional sort of business might work really well, and you might have like a certain area that which you can go through the mail.
I've thought about setting up, those little libraries that people put in front
little
of their
libraries
houses.
for DVDs.
Yeah, I've thought about doing that with movies because I have a lot of DVDs and I don't want to get rid of them.
I've actually started buying Blu-ray 4K DVDs, and last time I was down here in Los Angeles, I took a trip over to Amoeba, which is still a fantastic place.
I haven't been to the new location.
The new location has thousands of DVDs and Blu-rays that are under $6.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I picked up a few different things and brought them home, and even an HD Blu-ray looks significantly better than the 4K Netflix or 4K Amazon that comes through the internet.
It's less compressed. I mean, it's a different compression, but
it is. And I got to say that for this last movie, which is probably the last movie that I will ever get from the DVD service. I don't know if there's time to ship me one and for me to send it back. I know this whole thing goes offline here in the coming fortnight, but I got a movie that is so low res that watching it here on the big screen was a little bit painful at times. And I happened to watch a little behind the scenes and saw that they were using a PS Technic Mini 35 adapter, which anyone who was around in 2005,
I remember it well.
Yeah, knows it was a thing to turn little mini DV cameras that were shooting on mini DV tape into a format, or the appearance of a format, to have 35 millimeter film depth of field.
I used the Pro one on a short film that I did.
And the Pro one was much, much better than the mini DV one.
But it was basically focusing the sensor of the camera onto like a little screen onto which it was projecting an image that was taken off of a lens, a 35 millimeter PL mount lens of any zoom, prime, whatever the hell you wanted.
Exactly right. Well, this movie is called Noriko's Dinner Table. And Noriko's Dinner Table is a Japanese movie from 2005.
Never heard of it.
It is a psychological horror film, and it is quite disturbing. And yes, I would say that you might enjoy it, but it is long. It's a long movie. It's about 160 minutes long.
Ugh.
And in some ways, I got to say, I'm not in love with the movie because horror films is not exactly my jam, but it was interesting to watch it. It definitely felt like a time capsule, especially the time capsule from a technical perspective, because we're not really used to seeing movies that look like this anymore. It wasn't too many years later that mini DV became HDV, which actually was high definition, and then suddenly,
HDV kind of sucked, though.
It did suck, but compared to standard def, compared to the world of standard def, and the even lower resolution that was standard def through this relay lens, which is really what a PS Technic Mini 35 adapter was. You're taking an image, it's coming out of a lens onto a rotating piece of glass, and then another imager is photographing that. So anyway, Noriko's Dinner Table, it feels in some ways sort of like a very long, well put together student film. Like, I mean, it does have very, very high production value. It does have sometimes uneven performances, but it is disturbing. And in sort of ways that you don't necessarily expect it to be disturbing. And I was definitely disturbed by it. And that movie's going to sit with me. And I definitely feel like it's been influential to other people because I'd heard people talk about it, which is why I sought this out. It's not available on streaming. The only place I could get it was a DVD.
What made you get it if you're not into the genre?
Well, I've been teaching myself Japanese for like the last 7-8 years. And so I try to like test myself every now and again to watch stuff and see how much of it I'm absorbing and picking up. So I have a tendency sometimes to go down the path of like, hey, what is Japanese language and what might be interesting? And so Noriko's Dinner Table just happened to be that. So,
interesting.
And I felt like I did pretty well. I'm certainly understanding more. And so, I'm giving myself another like 30 something years and I should be, I won't be fluent, but I'll be proficient. I'll be able to,
Nice.
I'll be able to be proficient. I can already ask people like, where's the bathroom and fun stuff like
Nice.
that. So yeah, but it should get better. So anyway, there you go. Noriko's Inner Table, part 1 of my obsession, but really it's
I
probably
thought you said it's part 1 and it's 160 minutes long.
No, but really Netflix, the end of an era. I truly believe that physical media, video stores, I think there's going to be a resurgence. I think it's going to be something a cross between a Redbox and a Blockbuster. It's not going to be either. But I think that the idea of that coming back and your little library idea is not too far-fetched. We will see, but I think physical
my
media...
little library would just be like sticking a library in my front yard and letting people borrow movies or take them or whatever.
They'll probably never bring them back. That's the whole thing about little libraries. You put it out there and you don't ever expect to get them back.
I think that's fine. Right. If we could just swap around some movies, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, Bill Murray tells a story about how he had like 13 copies of Bottle Rocket at one point. He needed a little library so he could just put Bottle Rocket out there and people could come take Bottle Rocket from him. Anyway, so Ben, I think that just about does it. If people want to track you down, where can they find you?
They can go to benrock.com. Hey, go check out my weird-ass corporate work. It's not even a reel. It's just a page that has like full corporate stuff on it. I don't know if putting my corporate work up there is going to ever get me any actual work again, but...
someone will enjoy it.
Yeah, check it out while I'm waiting to get my next movie made. I'll make your next corporate video. Anyway, Ilya, where can people find you?
They can find me much of the time over at Hot Rod Cameras, hotrodcameras.com. If you need lenses, cameras, lighting, anything like that, hit us up. You need a studio built, hit us up. We can help you with all those things.
You want to come check out a kick-ass screening room. Holy crap.
That's true. It's going to be rocking in here tomorrow night. We got a screening. It'll be fun.
All right, so Ilya, who do we need to thank?
Let's thank our producer, Alana Cody. Alana Cody, kicking all the butt, putting all of these fantastic interviews. We've got sort of like stacked up now.
We got one coming up that I'm super excited about.
I can't wait. It'll be really great. And then we got to thank Ben Katz, our intrepid editor, whose job I probably did not make super easy today, but I appreciate you.
We made it a little easier by doing it in the same room, so he's only going to have to deal with
That's true. He doesn't have so many tracks. He has to stack and layer.
Much easier.
And we did it in this quiet space, so he doesn't have like airplanes flying over.
That's true.
Or, like,
dogs barking.
Compression.
Owls.
Owls. That's peacocks. Yeah.
I do have a peacock problem in my neighborhood.
And we got to thank Kay Zalatracci, who is making the underscore to the music in this episode, the underscore to the music. No, he's making
episode.
And every episode. I really think we got to start needling him, though. Start pushing him to get us some more music because, boy, wouldn't it be great to have music right now underneath what we're talking about?
We can do it, yeah. And I think we should have ad break music, too.
Ad break music. I'm into it. All right, Kays, if you're listening, think about that ad break music.
I know you are.
For years, we thought he wasn't.
And then it turned out he'd been listening this whole time.
Then he'd been listening this whole time.
So crazy.
Yeah, it was great.
Could have knocked me over with a feather. Anyway, Ilya, that about does it. You want to take us out?
Thanks for listening.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.